In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
and welcome to the latest Elite FPL Monday live reaction to whatever game's being played. And of course, tonight is the big game. It's Man United versus Arsenal, and we've had the big team news come in, and no Mason Greenwood. Mason Greenwood is on the bench, but as ever, I am joined by Jason. But before I hand over to Jason, I just want to let you guys know that obviously we are covering the Manchester United versus Arsenal game, but predominantly the chat will be revolving around our cash mini league. So we will be talking about the top four, how myself and Jason are doing, and various other regular members of the community. We'll also at some point, talking of the community, looking over the community team, which I've posted in the team screenshots, which I'm sure Jason will bring up once we start talking about it. But other than that, Jason, good evening to yourself. And who's joining us live in chat as we speak?
Hi, I'm just logging myself into the FPL website. So I'll give me 1 second.
Oh, better not be doing that live on air. Could get hacked. I wish I was hacked sometimes.
They might have a better idea how to run my team. Okay, we've got Arnie Arnold in chat. We've got VAR in chat. Oscar in chat with Paul J. FPL Roz J. We've got Brew in chat. We've got Resi Daisy. Got the moderator crew in chat. Lloyd AJ. Got Uncle Juicy TV. Good evening. I'm looking forward to this.
That's a new name.
Yeah. Welcome, Uncle Juicy. We're looking forward to the show. Well, glad to have you here.
Hello.
Absolutely. And we got a lot of the guys, Ben Wheatcroft in chat, Ananya Acharaya. I don't think that's how you say it, but that's the best I could do. Hello, Gabrielle. How you doing? Hello, Mac. Daily Llama, how you doing, buddy? But yes, it's the big game. It's the game of the weekend.
No, absolutely. Jason, can you remind us what you thought the score would be tonight? I went 2-1 to Arsenal. What did you say?
I 2-1 to... I went 2-1 to Arsenal as well. Yeah, I had to think about that then. Yeah, I also went 2-1 to Arsenal. But looking at the Arsenal team, I think it could be a boring draw.
I was thinking of doing a few bets, but I didn't. However, if I was to do a few bets, it would have been 1-0 United, 1-0 Arsenal, 0-0, 1-1, 2-1 either way. I think it's going to be very, very tight, Jason. To remind the audience, you're a United fan, aren't you? You looking forward to it?
Yeah, if we win, I'll be very happy. Obviously, if Dan James gets on the goals or an assist or so, then I'll be happy also. I'm not expecting much from this evening's game. I said it on the preview. I said it at the weekend. The way United are at the moment, I'm not expecting a great deal. But I'm looking forward to being surprised. Yeah,
just to remind everybody, you've got Daniel James playing tonight. I've got Aubameyang. He was going to be my captain, so if he explodes, you could see one of the most dejected individuals on the planet. And of course, I've got Mason Greenwood, but he hasn't started as expected. Whatever. Like I said, everybody, we are going to be predominantly going for our cash mini league. So unfortunately, we do need to do this. This is what we do the podcast for. In fact, talking of the individual that you mentioned just then, Uncle Juicy TV, said thank you for the shout out. No, thank you for joining us. At the end of the day, we will give you a shout out. If you want to join our Discord and want to come live on air, the voice is yours, my friend. But like I said, the Discord is in the description. We're not going to be taking too many calls tonight. Like I said, we are just going to be focusing on the cash mini league. I think Daily Llama may come on to talk about various other mini leagues potentially. And we're going to get Phil on to talk about the community team, which you guys are voting for each week specifically. But just a quick one, Jason. Your thoughts on Aaron Wan-Bissaka not starting tonight? And of course, FPL Booner getting him off the bench, would you believe?
What was the reasoning for it? I've been at work all day.
I think he may be ill. I've read somewhere that he may be ill.
It's like a cold or something. Oh, God's sake.
Either way, the fact that...
Players can't play with a cold. That's just... Yeah, anyway, I don't know what the news is. I'm sure I saw somewhere...
Yassine has confirmed in VAR that he's ill, so...
Right.
Slightly frustrating from a what do we call tonsillitis?
He's got a sore throat. He can't play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Davey P. Blinking boom. I'm not going to swear. Don't you say bloody all the time, Steve? Yes, I do. But like I said, we just want to focus tonight on the Cashman League. Of course, FPL Booner is one of our rivals, and he's going to get Kelly off the bench for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Our man Dylan's there, and that beautifully links us because our man Dylan, he is in that top 4 position. He finally got round to that, but the dominant player at the top of our mini league at the moment, of our cash mini league, is of course Marlon Moore with that. Jason, when you saw he had Vardy captain prior to the game, what did you think? I mean, you laughed just then. I mean,
well, no, I just thought, well, he's either. Well, I just think like he's gone for a differential captain immediately, and we know that Vardy. I mean, okay, he hasn't been performing much, but when he against that Newcastle team, I think it was a wise choice. Obviously, before that game, he's only scored 3 goals, 1 assist. I think he's nailed his captain choice this week. Whatever he's doing at the moment, he's just hitting goal. He's striking oil. He's hitting goal. He's doing really well, and going to be very, very hard to catch him.
Yeah, he's 10 points clear of second place, which is Andrew Fong, spelt with an F. He had Sterling captain. Andrew is 15 points clear of third. I think the top 2 are slowly, and I mean very, very slowly, pulling away from the other 2 in the top 4.
Well, it's looking like so Marlon Moore's going to be the September manager of the month.
Ah, brilliant!
Yeah,
Brilliant.
so there we
I'll
go.
Remind everybody what he wins for that.
He gets £10.
Hey,
he gets his entry fee.
Oh, are you sure about that? It's Gareth Edser.
Oh, is it?
Gareth Edser is actually.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, Marlon.
And in fact, it is going to be Gareth Edser because unless someone comes out of complete blue.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, will be.
Well, sorry. I do apologise, Marlon. It's Gareth Edser. So Gareth Edser, I apologise to you as well. So yeah, it's
I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but do you recognise the name Gareth Edser? I don't have a clue who that is.
Don't know.
They're willing to pay the money, but
yeah. So someone on Discord, obviously, because they had to be on Discord to sign up. So I'm sure we will find out when he comes to claim his prize money at the end of the season. So all the prize money will be claimed at the end of the season, guys.
Yeah, Davey FPL and Phil Potter. Phil coming on later, hopefully. They are in the top 4 of that Manager of the Month award, but no one's gonna catch anything because none of them have a chance there for somebody. I don't know what specifically happened, but all I could hear is a pause in the play for a second, a chance for somebody. I don't know who.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so going back to second now in the cash league. We've got Andrew Fong, who captain Sterling's on 49 points. Didn't take a hit. He did have Sergio Aurier in his team. He's not got a jammy bench. No, he hasn't. Oh, thank God for that. I saw Sayunku on the bench. I thought, please don't tell me he's got Wan-Bissaka, but he hasn't. No, 49 points. Very respectable score for this game week.
15 points clear of third spot, Show Me the Money, which is Wayne Hanley, one of our regular contributors. And this is where the Cash Mini League, I think, just tightens up like mad. Wayne's only
He did play his wild card, don't he?
He did indeed. And look who he's coming off the bench, everybody. Jota didn't play a minute. Yarmolenko. So actually, does that mean that... No, he won't even catch second.
No.
But he will... He'll catch it by by 9 points, obviously.
Yeah.
So, that
was a hard, quick maths there, Steve. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's with that. That this has paid off for him, isn't it? Really, I mean it's a great score, well above the average, and it's another team that's scored better than me. Let's go down to 4th place in the Challenge League.
Yeah, the final cash spot. Armand Dillon there in the
Dillon with 52.
By the way, Armand Dillon, you came live on air the other week. Unfortunately, the connection just completely dropped off. But if you're willing to come live on air, myself and Jason are more than happy to talk to you because you are somebody that has been with us since virtually day one. It'd be fantastic to get you live on air and talk to myself and Jason, talking all things Elite FPL, to be honest with you, because it'd be just, like I said, fascinating to hear what's kept you going throughout the whole of last season and into this season where you're in those top 4 positions. Sun captain as well, Jason.
Yeah, Sun captain. Obviously, you'd be disappointed that you didn't go with he didn't get the points from Sterling or De Bruyne, but yeah, I mean Son was a great it was up there as being a popular captain choice. I mean, looking at that team, I mean, it's a very strong team. It's got a lot of good players in it, and obviously he's benefited from the likes of having Mount in there as well, and Van Dijk. Obviously, Liverpool keeping the clean sheet. Yeah, Matt Ryan, your friend Matt Ryan, getting in those points.
Well, I've got a question to ask you, and I'll ask it once I finish giving out a bit of interesting player choices from the top 4, because it will make for relatively interesting reading. I've got a question for you from Uncle Juicy TV specifically for you, and I'd like to hear the question as well. I'd also like to tell everybody as well that I'm going to get Jason to talk to you about the web, to talk to you guys about the benefits of the website. I personally went on there about 40 minutes ago, and it's an absolute superb piece of kit, to be honest with you. And I highly recommend any of you hardcore Elite FPL followers, I highly recommend you go on the website, and Jason will talk about it. But before I go on to Uncle Juicy TV's question, which is specifically for Jason, I'd like to hear it again. Just a few little player statistics on the top 4. 3 of the top 4 have Tom Heaton. 4 of them all have Lundstrom, Kevin De Bruyne, and then and Salah. So all 4 teams in the top 4 have Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, and Lundstrom. And the other popular players, where 3 of the 4 own, which is Abraham, Aurier, and Mason Mount. And the slight differentials with 2 of the teams out of 4 owning Son and Sterling. Some of the random players where our full-on differentials were only players have got 1 of each. Jota in there, Wilson. You've got Cantwell, only owned by 1 of the top 4. What does that say about us, Jason? Robertson only owned by he's owned by Andrew Fong. Soyuncu. Yeah, it's all slightly differential, but a lot of it is pretty much very, very similar in a way. And I don't think the differentials are that going to be making it. We've even got Wayne Handley with David Silva, which links me beautifully into Uncle Juicy TV's question, which is this: Jason, can you discuss so he clearly is a fan of the show, considering he said this. Can you discuss Jason's thoughts from last night on the painful Pep roulette and his interesting ideas on using the alternative Man City midfielder? So for anyone who didn't watch last night, Jason came up with a fantastic plan, which I'll be honest with you, I did a quick draft and it worked perfectly, which is to have 3 Manchester City midfielders, which didn't include Sterling, but went with Mahrez, one of Kevin De Bruyne to link up with 2 other midfielders, whichever of your choice would be.
Mahrez,
so Jason,
Bernardo Silva, or David Silva. Yeah, I mean, it's a thought that keeps coming around in my mind, thinking like, all this worry about rotation and the likes of Sterling and Aguero still seemingly being not immune to this rotation, and the form of Bernardo Silva and Mahrez is another solution to this dilemma. Just basically taking the money out of like the Aguero, the Sterlings, and putting them into, the Mahrez's, the Bernardo Silvas, and the David Silva. I honestly think that you can have a well-functioning team with those players in, and having, say, McGinn, Mason Mount as a backup to complement them. Well, I mean, you could even play 5 in midfield if you wish, and alternate as well, benching a striker or a defender each week, depending on the fixtures. I just think that it's another way of playing the game, and obviously, as long as you're willing to accept, the odd benching of one of them. I mean, generally speaking, you're probably going to get 2 out of 3 play, and play some quite a bit of minutes. So unless you're very unfortunate, but I just think that could be an alternative way of looking at the City, and having 3 City in, which are going to possibly outscore the likes of Aguero and Sterling.
Well, we've had Ania basically saying, in my opinion, it works with Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne, and Mahrez. So as your 3 Man City, along with Mason Mount, and then up front Pookie, Abraham, and P. Now I don't know who P is. PEA, capital letters. That can't be
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Aubameyang, of course, right? Yeah. I don't know why you just don't say Oba, but it doesn't really matter. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's if you value a 12 million player.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you there, Jason? It's just nothing about the game or anything. It's just I want to say hello to one of our regular contributors on the breakfast show. It's Aussie Boy. Aussie Boy, me and Jason just want to say good luck and have a safe journey. He's coming over to England because he's specifically coming for the Liverpool versus Leicester game.
Oh, that's cool.
And he's going to be staying in London. So thank you for joining us, Aussie Boy.
I hope the weather's good for you, mate. I hope the weather's good for you. Check the forecast in London.
You bring an umbrella, a big one, because it's going to be a horrible, horrible winter, autumn, whatever, yeah. So make sure you have a raincoat and a umbrella. Sorry, Jason, you were saying about Aubameyang and... The top heavy Pookie Abraham up top.
Because of course now as a Aguero owner, the news is that Pep's going to be starting. Aguero against Dynamo Zagreb. Who they play in Zagreb? Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, this Aguero saga's kind of really not paid off as much as I'd hoped, considering some of the results that City have had. And now, of course, this GW7 coming into contention. Is that another player? I mean, don't shoot me down, chat, but is GW7 another player that you could consider from Man City? Again, I mean, if he's getting minutes and he's going to be putting Aguero on the bench for him, it's a wait and see, I know, for a lot of people, but is it? Would it be outside the realms of possibility in a few weeks' time? People start bringing in Gabriel Jesus because he's getting the minutes. That's a worry, especially for myself. That's and
talking of Gabriel Jesus, in every minute that he's played this season, he has returned something attacking wise, other than in Tottenham when they were at home to Tottenham and it was 2-2. So in 68 minutes versus West Ham, he got a goal. 33 minutes versus Norwich away, he got an assist, and obviously the other day in 65 minutes he got a goal. But it's just as you've just stated, the regularity of starts. And I'd rather go with your original idea, which is going with De Bruyne along with Mahrez, David Silva or Bernardo Silva. I think that is an absolutely very, very good idea.
Well, especially when you've got the likes of Vardy, Callum Wilson, Tammy Abraham.
Well,
up front, you could have these assets.
Just reminded me. I was listening back to the show last night, and to everybody that's watching this, last night's show was absolutely fantastic. I think just watch it for FPL Aguero. FPL Aguero came live on air, and simply put, he was talking about bringing in Tom Cleverley and Holebas from Watford from -4. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. It stirred up a very interesting discussion with myself, Jason, and Aguero. Me and Jason dismissed it, but Aguero is 128,000th in the world, so who are we to judge on this? But last night's show was absolutely fantastic. Some of the calls we had last night was great. And like I said, if you want to come live on air at some point this evening, probably after the game finishes, or maybe during the second half, we'll be taking your calls to talk tonight's game so far. But yeah, talking of Leicester, Jason, I was listening back to the stream and I'm thinking, Pereira, Vardy. Your thoughts on Leicester assets? Because I was reading an article today from Football 365, and just simply paraphrase, they just simply said that Leicester could get into that top 4 this season. They really could. The only thing that I don't like about Leicester is the fact they couldn't beat you.
Is that a goal?
Guys, no.
Okay.
They couldn't beat you guys, or they couldn't get anything from you guys when you went 1-0. That's my only concern. But your thoughts on Leicester assets, Jason?
Well, yeah, it's... Did you know that defender... Who's the highest scoring defender at the moment?
I can check easily, but I'm assuming it's Pereira.
Yeah. And his fixtures, away at Liverpool after that, they're absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And like
Burnley at home, Southampton away, Crystal Palace away, Arsenal at home. It's an easy... Oh, God, that's... Brighton at home, Alvin away, Everton at home, Watford at home, Aston Villa away, Norwich at home. Yeah.
And if you look at his home record as well this season, it's stunning. It is absolutely fantastic.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, am I really missing a trick with Vardy? You know, and now, you know, it's... I mean, if I was... Yeah.
And underneath Rodgers as well, Vardy's record is something along the lines of scored 16 in 17 games or 15 in 17. It's something ridiculous like that. I may even, do you know what? While we're chatting away and stuff, I may actually bring up the article and just quickly tell you about Leicester, because I think it's important to discuss this. But so you're kind of tempted then, Jason?
What, Jamie Vardy?
Yeah, or Leicester assets in general.
I mean, just looking at those fixtures, it's hard to ignore, isn't it? It is.
And like I said,
they stand out like a sore thumb. Could do with a wild card.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because, like I said, it looks like I'm going to be wild carding during this international break, and I think, and I'm doing a pretend wild card now, and Leicester assets, i.e. Pereira and Vardy, I think I may be putting in, maybe being the key word there. So we'll find out. But just to go over a few things that Football 365 said regarding Leicester. So they have one of the most reliable strikers in the Premier League, who's capable of scoring against high-class defenders, and appears to have done a deal with the devil, possibly given a few crazy skills, to avoid aging process. Jamie Vardy's movement in the penalty area is truly world class. Take your mind off him for a second, he will cause you pain. Leicester boosts the best joint defence in the league at the moment for goals conceded. Only Liverpool have conceded fewer shots on target than them, and with Soyuncu as the perfect replacement for Harry Maguire, and he's prepared to win headers and do the dirty work. It looks like they have been assured of defence in there. Liverpool have come. This will impress you, Jason. Liverpool have comfortably the best fullback pair in the Premier League, and Andrew Robinson, Trent Alexander-Arnold. But Leicester have a strong case to boast the second best in, you know who, Pereira and Ben Chilwell. Basically, they're saying that Pereira is, simply put, the midfield can shuffle over to fill in when Pereira attacks, knowing that Chilwell will cover. If the fullbacks are exceptional, the same is true of Brendan Rodgers' midfield. Playing Tielemans and Ndidi as a two is a risky, given the former's fondness for pushing forward, but they are two of the best young midfielders in Europe. And it just keeps going on and on.
I mean, they've done some great transfer business, and their midfield is just brilliant. Like
it's this final line. Sorry, Jason, this is the final line. There are still a few doubts about Leicester, not the least their away record against the better clubs, I agree, and the occasional lack of a plan B, but the top six looks likely this season. It's get on while you can. I mean, I'm just quickly going over a team here, like I said, and I am wanting in my wild card Trent Alexander-Arnold, because, like I keep saying, he's a freak of nature. And I think it's definitely worth having him in your team. And I've got in the bank to spend right now 23.8 million. And it's because I haven't got a strike force. That's embarrassing.
Suddenly you thought you had 123 million to spend.
No, I mean, Jason, you're watching the game and everything briefly and stuff. How's the game looking so far? It sounds a bit quiet, a bit flat. I mean, every time you seem to do a live game, it's just dire. Last week, for example, Aston Villa West Ham.
The weather's miserable, so's the game. There's nothing really going on at the moment. But I'm sure you'll hear it on the radio first if something does happen. So you're going to wildcard, Steve-O?
Yeah, well, it depends on how next week goes. If next week, game week 8, fails to deceive like this week, I think I'm going to hit the wild card. I'll have 2 free. I'll either have 2 free transfers going into the international break where I could get in the 2 Leicester players, or I will just wild card. I think that it could be that stage where it's like, Steve-O, it's staring you in the face. Hit it while you can. To be honest with you,
I'm going to I'm going to try my best to save a transfer, actually, and I'm going to do the Vardy in, and then you save 2 transfers and work out where I'm going to cut, whether Aguero is going to outstay his welcome in my team. All depends on next weekend, and I don't know if I'm confident. I might just put the captaincy on De Bruyne.
Sorry. Jamie Vardy's 8. I genuinely didn't know this. He's 8.9.
Yeah.
Good God. Wow. That's I genuinely didn't know that. That's.
What did you think it was, 9.5 or so?
I thought it was not. I thought it was 9.5. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy, isn't it? But it's United stands live at the moment. Yeah, he's angry. I would imagine he is FPL Penguin. So yeah, we've gone for the top 4. I just want to quickly say that I'll try and bring it up on the screen. But we've got, as you will know, we've got on the website, we've got the score predictor game, and I want to announce that the winner of the score predictor game, if I'll just get it up, is talk amongst yourself.
It won't be me.
Talk
Some
about
freak of nature that
actually, I don't know if I can announce it just yet because obviously this game's yet to be decided, and there's 1 point in it, so I can't announce it. So it's either it's going to either be, well, it's potentially between. Well, that's a good question. It's potentially between 5 people.
Right. Okay.
So it's between Huey Faherty, Christian, Connor North, Lino, and Brett Mollison, depending on what their score predictions were in this game at the moment. So I can't announce the winner, but the winner will be getting a Timo Pukki Train T-shirt.
The one that you're wearing now. And talking of the website, Jason, can you please tell the audience the benefits of this specific website that you've created?
It's just got all of the main things that you'd need, really. It's got the Kashmir League. If you're part of the Kashmir League, it's got on the front page. It's got the breakdown of the prizes. It's got the league table, live table. It's got live form table for the teams as well. It's got a few bits of merchandise on there if you're interested in that sort of thing. It's got our SoundCloud on it. It's got our Discord links all on it. If you want to join our Discord through there, you can do that. It's got a forum. It's got score prediction game, which we talk about. It's got stats, goal scoring and assist stats on it. It's got our YouTube directory. It's got some of the history behind us as well. And yeah, been a lot of people using it over the last few weeks. I'm really grateful. Thank you ever so much.
And also talking of promoting stuff, do you want to tell anybody that's listening to this now live, i.e. Uncle that we just had on just now, about the benefits of Discord? You made a fantastic video yesterday about the Discord, and do you want to tell our audience live now about the major benefits of using Discord?
Oh. Is that a goal?
No, it's been Leno saved.
Right, okay. So yeah, guys, Discord is obviously what we use. It's almost like the center of our community all in one. And it's got voice. We're on there now. We talk to other FPL managers during the game week and match days. And we can also chat to them in text chats as well. It's a really useful, easy program to use, guys. And we would recommend you come join us. It's 100% free.
Yeah, that's the key, and we keep banging on about getting on live calls and everything, and that's the only way you can connect with us, so to speak, live on air, is through that Discord. So, like I said, it's in half time. If you want to come live on air to discuss with me and Jason how the game's going so far,
boring at the moment, guys.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit glad that I didn't captain Aubameyang so far. So good, it's been one of those. What people, I haven't done this for a very, very long time, Jason. What are people saying in chat? And by the way, anybody in chat, if you have any questions for myself and Jason, please just ask your questions. Right, your best opportunity to interact with us now is ask us now while the game's live.
Yeah. So is Tomori a good option for Aurier?
Just put him in my team, in my wildcard team draft. I've just put him in. In fact, just to let people know what I've just done as a wildcard draft, just for argument's sake, it's no formation. It's just getting in random players for now.
You can't post it in the Discord screenshots. Well, sorry, in the team screenshots for me, and I can stick it up on the screen then, can't I?
Good thinking. That's what I'll do that in a minute. Yeah.
Do that in a minute.
I'll be doing it on my laptop. That's why. I'll do that in a minute. But I'll just.
The answer to the question for me is yes, and I think Steve-O would say yes as well, considering he's brought him in on his wildcard.
Absolutely, yeah.
And just bought in Fabianski, and he got injured. Any thoughts of a replacement? Oh, Mac. Go with Brian.
Oh, yeah, he could be out for 3 months,
Matt Ryan.
which means that according to Suj of Planet FPL, simply mean get rid of any West Ham defenders because they're not going to keep a clean sheet anymore because it's all down to basically Fabianski. So avoid West Ham defenders like the plague.
Is Trent Alexander-Arnold essential? Says Archie Kendall. Yes, I would. Well,
No.
I wouldn't say essential. We don't have to have him in. Like, I wouldn't say he's more essential than De Bruyne. I would say he's almost essential. I think, Steve-O, what would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Liverpool's fixtures at the moment, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me now if for their hard fixtures that Liverpool actually kept some clean sheets. So who have they got next? Leicester at home. Wouldn't surprise me if they kept a clean sheet there.
It wouldn't surprise you. I see Leicester scoring in that game.
Right, okay. Man United away, I can see them keeping a clean sheet. Tottenham at home, that's got a draw written all over it. Aston Villa away. Essentially, it's from game week 11, but again, a bit like with Digne, you've got Digne in mainly because of his attacking prowess, and Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think the word essential is for players like Kevin De Bruyne. He is essential, but Trent Alexander-Arnold is pushing. To be honest with you, I mean, if we look at his points so far this season in every game, we're talking 5, 1, 5, 7, 6 for a defender. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But what's his face? Van Dijk's. What's his point scoring so far this season? Because
yeah, I can't. I'll go back into it 1 second. He was really well. You're breaking up, Steve-O. You're having a bit of a mare on the connection at the moment. Oh, he's gone. We'll get him back, guys. Don't worry. Van Dijk is actually, wow, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th on 31. Let me just see if I can get Steve-O back. I bet his internet's dropped, chat. Hello, Steve-O. Welcome back. Your internet dropped.
Strange.
Yeah. Dropped off. Anyway, it's all right. You're not missing out on much. Still 0-0. If Pookie blanks against Villa, will you drop him? Yassine, yes. If I can, I will.
Absolutely. Pookie is somebody who, at the moment, seems to be doing really, really well. In fact, there's no something about it. It's a fact. He's doing really, really well at home. Double-digit points each home game. It's just away from home. And if you're happy with that, it's fine. We were talking about Callum Wilson ahead of Pookie because of Callum Wilson's consistent returns. Yeah. And who would you rather have? And I know you went with Callum Wilson, didn't you, instead of Pookie, Jason?
Oh yeah. I would. I probably would move over to Callum Wilson if I could. But this again, I've kind of set my stall out now. It's very hard for me to really move around too much in my team because I've got Aguero up front. I'm going to have to free money up there, and this is why I need those 2 free transfers for the international break, really. So I can go into that international break with those 2 transfers, do 2, maybe 3 transfers, and then see where we're at. Come game week 9.
Absolutely, yeah. Any more questions? What's good?
Yeah. Here we go. Likely of Aubameyang delivering big calls over his upcoming good run of fixtures. Depends on the team that Emery puts out. I think there's a good likelihood he'll score some goals. I mean, it's Aubameyang.
Rubbish teams, doesn't he?
I think you can't dismiss him. I certainly wouldn't dismiss him. He's all about goals. Oh God, I've seen a lovely. Just got to see pictures of Emery on the bench, just in the pouring rain. He's looking. Oh God, Looks pretty gaunt at the moment, like the game. We got another question here. I would get Matip instead of Van Dijk. I mean, Matip, yeah, I've got him in. I'm happy to have him at the moment, as long as he's keeping his place. That's obviously the worry, isn't it? I've gone with Soyuncu, Rico, Lundstrom, and Gilbert and Matip. And if I need cash, I might transfer out Matip for Tomori. But for this stretch of Liverpool games, right? Yeah, I mean, you can do that. Obviously, that's your only Liverpool asset there in defence. Do you really need to make that transfer? Steve-O, if you continue doing not so well, will you change the way you play the game? Says Tahir.
I'm not. The question that sticks out for me is, will I change the way I'm playing the game? I'm not. There's nothing that I've done different from any other season. This season, as me and Jason have discussed to death, is the fact that none of the players that we've brought in are doing anything. They're doing absolutely nothing. My captaincy choices have been... In fact, I can answer that question a bit. What I used to always do, and Nimfria brought this up when she came on the preview, is that she said that she used to go on Fantasy Football Scout and just took words to the effect of whatever the poll vote said on there, she would go with that. And also to get a general idea on Twitter. Well, for me, it always used to be the Fantasy Football Scout poll vote. However, this year, I'm honest. I cannot believe I'm saying this. I'm so angry that I've not gone with the history. I've been pleading to you guys to listen to the history, but I don't listen to my own advice. In fact, that's what I should be doing, listening to my own advice. That's something which I say to myself every single season, and I never, ever do. And it's just frustrating. I keep saying this. The biggest mistake I've made this season is when I took the captaincy of Kevin De Bruyne at home to Brighton. I had it there in black and white or in green and white. It was there. Jason and FPL Boona went, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" And I'm like, you know what? You're right. What am I doing? Put it on Sterling. We all know what happened there. It could be a completely different story if I'd have just simply kept the armband on Kevin De Bruyne, and I didn't. And that is one of the big regrets. But transfer-wise and everything, I've done nothing different to any other season other than what I used to do, which is catch price rises. I used to do transfers really, really early, but now I'm pretty much waiting until Friday if I do want to do a transfer. Apart from the other week when I got Otamendi, but that was a desperation move. Other than that, I'm pretty much playing the same way to here. So, yeah. What about you, Jason? What do you think is going wrong this season for maybe yourself?
Yeah, I just think it's just the inconsistencies and the I just think that I don't know how my team's going to be in 4 game weeks time, because I'm constantly being let down by players, overlooking other players, thinking about how I can get in the player that I think is going to have form and taking hits to get them. And I don't know. I just think that playing risky certainly doesn't paid off this year, and obviously, you know, keeping the template has proven to be, you know, a bit more advantageous. People who got on Mount early on have done well. I just think that the likes of Salah, Mane, you know, Sterling, obviously blanking a few now, and it's obviously you got that goal late on. But yeah, I think to be honest with you, it's still early days, and I was pretty annoyed. But looking at my team now, am I happy with it? I've not been really happy with my team for quite some time, really. I've been the wild card I was happy with. We all know how long that lasted. But yeah, I honestly don't know how to answer that question, really. It's just muddled.
My team, I've just put the wildcard team. I've just put in the Discord team screenshots, Jason.
Oh yeah, cool. Awesome.
And Nanya is saying, I'm wondering if Mo Salah is still essential. I'm sure he'll get a haul.
No, he's not essential.
Is he even essential? No.
I don't. We're talking about the word essential in every like part of the game. I mean, it's, to me, no, he's not essential. What
No,
has he done? What has he done to show that he's essential?
Yeah, like I said, the only player that I think is essential, although ironically, he's scored 10 less points than De Bruyne, would you believe? Salah, unbelievable. But I think Kevin De Bruyne is the essential player to have for anybody's team. That's just my opinion. But I think Jason does agree with that. And then you look at the rest of the players in the top point scorers. Is Pereira essential? No. Trent Alexander-Arnold? No. Lundstram? Definitely not. Eric Peters? No. Joel Ward of Crystal Palace? Absolutely not. Then you look at the midfield. Kevin De Bruyne, we've already mentioned. Salah? No. Sterling? No. Mane? No. Mahrez? McGinn?
I really like that team. That team. What do you reckon, chat? Steve-O's wildcard team so far. That is a beautiful team.
And let me just explain what Jason's thought process is regarding triple Man City. Now, admittedly, I've got 2 midfielders rather than 3. But if Mahrez or Kevin De Bruyne weren't to start, then I'd have one of these midfielders either playing or a striker coming off the bench. Tomori, Lundstram.
Would you not consider Bernardo Silva over Mahrez? Oh, see, I think Bernardo Silva is more of Pep's kind of. I think he's more of a favourite for Pep.
I mean, looking at his minutes here, he's played every single game, but it's not a lot of minutes per se. He's so far played 341 minutes. Now, I'm probably going to be proven wrong now, but Mahrez, he has played 398. Here we go. United on the attack, and Rashford's missed. There we are.
That's a surprise.
Rashford, what's going on with Rashford? He's supposed to be the second. He's playing up front. He's going to be the greatest striker in the world, and all of a sudden,
there's something. Either the morale or something. The morale in the team is just absolute rock bottom at the moment, and the confidence. Like, look at Alexis Sanchez. Like, since he's left United, he's banging in the goals. There's something. Some people are joking about it being a curse, but there's something ain't right at Man United at the moment. Something seriously isn't right, and God, this could end up being a 0-0.
Yeah,
it could just end up being a 0-0, a boring 0-0. Where's our promised Greenwood? Yeah, I know, right? We need to get onto social media, get onto Twitter, and start.
If you want to
causing a riot.
We don't advocate betting. We don't advocate betting. Yeah, we do. If you want to put some money, a cheeky 20p. That's an ode to Pete Andrews, one of my friends from anyway. 20p on Mason Greenwood to score the last goal of tonight's game to celebrate his 18th birthday. There's a 20p bet for you guys. Mason Greenwood to come as a sub and to score the last goal of the game to make it either 1-1 or 1-0 United. That would not surprise me whatsoever.
Please gamble responsibly.
Absolutely, yes. And a lot of people compliment me on this team, but De Gea coming
I said that if it's going to take De Gea masterclass to keep Arsenal out. It's going to take an absolute masterclass from De Gea, and if he's on form, yeah. But anyway, I've already done enough betting for one day. Says gee whiz. Sanchez is a central player, not wide. I think to be honest with you, there's going to have to be some changes in that United team. At the moment, I watched the youth team highlights. I'm enjoying watching the youth team for Man United much more than the main starting 11. You still there, Steve-O?
Daniel James coming in there.
Steve-O, you're so.
Hold on. We got to go. Arsenal have conceded. McTominay.
Get in, United. I'm happy United has scored, but I'm gutted it isn't Dan James.
25 yards out. McTominay. Isn't that like his 20th goal this season?
jeez.
McTominay,
Please say it was a Dan James assist.
the ball was cleared away from Arsenal.
Oh, right. Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, so he's got an assist. I thought he'd scored again once this season already. Maybe that was in the cup. I don't know. But
Rashford assist, is it? Oh well, there we go. There's the Arsenal clean sheet gone.
Thank
Everybody.
goodness. Yeah, Ray Joyce straight away, 0% owned. Well, I'll give you the exact stats on that. McTominay is owned by 1.4% of the overall ranks
of anti-fantasy teams.
Is 10.9. So overall, basically 12% of the game own those two players. Brilliant. Hopefully Arsenal will come out their shell.
And 12.9% of them are United fans.
Yeah.
Who quit after game week 1. No, there we go. So United have got a goal. Hopefully it'll be one of many. And watching Dan James bombing forward, it's quite an amazing sight to see, really.
Keep forgetting you own him. I keep forgetting him. Talking of your team, Jason, you're 48 points off 4th spot as of yesterday. How are you planning on catching that 48 points? I'm 54 points off that. Is it 54 points?
No, I'm more 54. Than that, aren't you?
Yeah, well, it's 74. 74 points. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay. I don't know how on earth I'm going to catch it.
You just got to you got to do what Wizzy says. Play your own game. # play your own game. Because at the moment, you say these names: Pereira, Vardy, Cannon, Wilson. Your ears prick up. You want to get them all in. You can chop your team around, getting them in, and the players you took out could outscore them. That's the pure. And the thing is, you've got to be patient in FPL. And you know what? About 20 minutes ago, you said, Jason, what would you say? What would you say this season's been like for you? Why has it gone so wrong? I haven't been patient. That's my answer. I haven't been patient this season. I've been chasing points. I've been chopping, changing, taking hits, doing wild cards, and I've been patient. There you go. And it's bit me. But it could be a lot worse. It could be my rank could be 1.4 million.
Yeah. You had to get that in there, didn't you?
But anyway, it's but yeah,
it's absolutely pathetic. I like I said, I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. A lot of regular, decent fantasy football players. I'm just in the same boat. And I don't want to keep banging on about it. It's just a fact that I just can't seem to catch a break at the moment. And it wouldn't surprise me if this game ended 1-0. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this game ended 0-0, to be honest with you. It is...
Well, get your calls in, guys. It's half time. If you want to join us, you want to join us, come into the waiting room, have your say on this Monday night reaction to the Man United Arsenal game.
Anybody there at the moment, Jason? Was everybody being shy?
We've got Anurag in the waiting room.
Let's get him on.
Good evening, so Anurag. How you doing?
Hello. How you guys do?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the game so far?
I'm not watching it. I'm just
brilliant.
And it doesn't really matter in my FPL team. I only have AWB who's not playing.
Who have you got coming in for him?
Digne. 1 point.
Oh, yeah.
But I have McTominay in my draft teams. FPL draft.
Well done. So yeah,
I'm good.
Oh, that's a shame. You're not watching the game though, so we can't get your predictable thoughts on it. Have you got Pereira or Vardy in your team?
Vardy.
Very good.
What are your thoughts on Leicester assets moving forward, Anurag?
Well, yeah, they're a good choice. I mean, they're competing for that top 3, top 2 potentially spot. I don't know why people are saying after Liverpool. I mean, a lot of people saying to get them after Liverpool, but I mean, even the Liverpool game, I would, because Liverpool are not defensive, not that great. So yeah, I would say they're good choices moving forward, especially with the fixes they have.
Well, I'm inclined to agree. I think there's goals for Leicester in that Liverpool game.
Yeah.
But they got a potent attack going forward, and you've got Vardy, and you've got to be happy with it. And I'm looking at Steve-O's wildcard team.
Yeah,
have you had a look at it? Have you had a look at it, and have you got an opinion on it?
It's a pretty good wildcard team. Has the players that I would do wildcard if I were to wildcard right now.
They're all players that are key to their teams, barring Mahrez.
Mahrez is just a rotation pep roulette, but
I still think
you have
to
deal with that for all Man City players anyway. So, anyways, you have to deal with that. So,
no, that's exactly the thing. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm just looking at that team now, and if I was to wildcard next week after next week, so game week 8, then maybe that is the team I'd be kind of looking at.
Steve-O,
maybe dropping.
I hear McTominay's quite cheap option to get in.
5 million, waste of space. Absolutely useless. I'm not you, Jason. I don't react to players that score immediately. And again, who am I to say anything? I'm still 30 odd points behind you.
Well, you've got a second half to hope that Aubameyang can close the gap.
I
doubt it very much. Anurag, have you got any final thoughts, mate?
No. Let's see what happens. Well, this game doesn't really matter to me, but
what do you think it will end up as? What do you reckon the score will be?
I can see this potentially ending 1-0 to Man U, but Aubameyang maybe get a goal or two. Because Man U, as you said earlier, Man U don't look, you could say, confident.
Yeah, but they've taken the lead in front of their crowd. Yep. You never know. You never know. And De Gea's having a bit of a worldie. So
showing him.
I said all along. I said if De Gea has a great game, Arsenal. Arsenal could be a score. Yeah, that would be the only time.
0 goals for Arsenal.
Yeah, but thank you ever so much, Eric, for coming on.
Yep.
Cheers, buddy. Cheers.
Looking over Arsenal's fixtures, Jason. Like I said, Aubameyang's a bit of a flat-track bully. Bournemouth at home, can see him doing very well in that. Southampton, Sheffield United away. Again, same thing. Crystal Palace at home. Yeah, Wolves at home. And their next tough fixture is basically Man City away, but that's not until December. And then it's a case of when will Aubameyang get rested.
I always say it, but I don't want to sound old now, but hasn't this year gone really quick?
It doesn't seem quick for me, but
no? God, I just can't believe that in a month's time it's Halloween. Just can't believe it. Sorry, it's just completely throwed me. That
you're talking of the years going quickly. As Dan, like I always say to Dan, that beautifully links me into this. Get into your diaries, everybody. It's November the 1st. It's the Elite FPL podcast birthday. It's the anniversary of our podcast. The first time we went live on YouTube. So a bit misleading for people that when I give out this information, if you want to go back in the archive, which you can look back on elitefpl.com, but it was game week. What was it? Game week 5 or 6, Jason? That we officially went. No, game week 11.
Game week 4 we started uploading, and game week 11 was the first live stream.
Yeah, right. So when you go back, if anybody wants to watch game week 11 last year, you may be thinking, "Oh, a minute, this isn't a live stream. You've got none of the graphics up in front." No, we are aware of that, but it was the first time we started going live on YouTube. And then a few weeks later, you'll be able to see the wonderful display that Jason put up on screen, and that's how it all developed. And it's a genuinely a wonderful history lesson into the insight of Elite FPL, the start. So yeah, November the 1st, we are going to be celebrating with our co-host, our former co-host Dan. So the three of us, the three amigos, will be back together for one time only together live on air, all on screen together. And what we want to do is we want to celebrate with all the old school regulars that have been there since the start. People like our man Dylan, Daily Llama, FPL Booner, Vince Chapman. Also, there was one particular member that comes still here now who actually commented for the first time on a live stream, and we want to reveal that as a special on the day. It's a bit of a surprise for you
We've got a
guys.
question.
We are...
We've got a question from Sultan Saeed. Do we have any content from before Game Week 5 anywhere? It's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be on Facebook, isn't it?
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that.
It's going to be hidden away on Facebook somewhere, yeah.
You should be able to get that.
Yeah, might be able to dig it out somewhere.
That would be... I'll never forget, Jason, like...
That video we did.
People...
That video I did with you and Dan in the first... I think it was the first one that you guys did.
Was that on Facebook, was it?
That was on Facebook, yeah.
I can't... Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought we only did our stuff on YouTube.
No,
Wow.
it was on Facebook when you and Dan were doing it.
Jesus Christ, I can't remember.
Literally just you and Dan sat in front of the camera going, "Welcome to the Torbay Elite podcast."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Wow, that's how it's evolved."
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk to Dan on the day, but I remember when me and Dan first ever did.
I'm going to get some clips and I'll play some of the clips during our anniversary stream. How does that sound?
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait for it. I really am looking forward to it, and yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, I remember when we first ever did it, and me and
Vince
Dan
Chapman. Sorry. Yeah, Vince Chapman. Yeah. When you first did it, no, you first because you were speaking. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember when we first ever did a video. It took about 30 attempts just to do the intro alone. Me and Dan were like constantly messing it up. It was ridiculous. Now it's just.
Well, you can't mess up a live stream. You can't mess up a live stream. That's why the likes of, that's why SMZ's got so much content to pull from when he does his memes. But I don't
remember this from Vince. Yeah, go on, read out Vince's.
Yeah,
I don't remember this.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember when we were doing a video where Jason was sitting in his garden. I was sat in my garden. I was on my laptop on my garden table. Yeah.
Can you remember when roughly was this?
Oh, this was quite early on. I'll probably say Game Week 16, probably somewhere around about there.
I can see Dan's there. Dan, if you want to come quickly live on air and give us your first half thoughts to the game so far. Like I said, it's second half. We're only in the half time at the moment, and if anybody wants to come live on air to speak to me and Jason before the game kicks off the second half, at the moment it's Man United 1, Arsenal 0, McTominay with the goal, Rashford assist. I've been told though, Jason, it wasn't much. It was a FPL assist. It was a bit of a shanky kind of thing. So yeah, if Dan, if you want to come live on air, your opportunity is here right now, just before the game kicks off again. About 2 or 3 minutes before it starts and everything. And yeah, I mean, Lloyd, AJ, can't trust Arsenal. No, you can't. Not when they're playing top 6 teams. I think it's from a real life perspective, Jason, you must be very positive with this result.
Oh yeah, well so far, yeah, but I'm not going to count my chickens. There's still 45 minutes left, and Arsenal have been quite threatening. So let's see how we get on. I'll be more relaxed if we can get a second.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if we quickly look over I'm going to quickly look over the Premier League table at the moment, see where you would be if you actually continue winning this game. You're going to go above us. We're above you at the moment. Would you believe? Would you believe that?
Well, yeah. I would actually.
If Arsenal beat you, we're going to be above you by 1 point.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I would never have predicted that at the start.
We're a mid-table team at the moment. I hate to say it, but we are. We're playing like one. We certainly I've got some issues at the moment. I'm hoping that this game we can get something out of and it will turn it around for us. I mean, it's. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be negative, but I'm a realist.
If you win this game, you go above Arsenal.
Yeah.
Would you believe that?
It's still just like FPL. It's still tight margin. There's still very, very little in it. So it's a lot of gains to be made in the Premier League table at the moment.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. And Like I say, while we're doing this live stream, everybody, like I said, we're not really taking many calls this evening. We are kind of focusing on the Cash Mini League tonight. And what we'll probably do over the second half is look at some of our more popular regular faces that join us on live air and everything. But we'll probably take a couple of calls after the game ends and everything. But we're only going to be streaming for the second half. But
I think
yeah, Jason,
I think it might. I think if it's possible, well, I suppose you can carry on talking, but I was just going to get myself a drink before the second half goes. So I'll be right back.
Yep, there's Jason there, and just going for a quick drink. But he doesn't do what I do, which is just bottle of water.
I've got the intermission. I've got the intermission video, but I didn't want to. Yeah, obviously you're still there, so it's all right.
Don't worry about that, my friend. We can all stay with me drinking water. No, but in all seriousness, if you want to ask us any questions, a bit of old school with myself and Jason today. Well, we'll answer your questions on the live stream. But so for all means, if you want to ask myself and Jason any questions, whether it's about the podcast itself, where we see us moving in the future, anything about fantasy football, your thoughts on this. The reason why I just said shot then is because Bruce said shot of vodka. Now you can forget that. I'm not interested in that whatsoever today. I only do shots of vodka on special occasions, i.e. the 1 year anniversary of this podcast. So like I said, November the 1st, everybody drunk with his what would be my favourite movie? Well, mine, this could be a podcast in itself. So my number one is Die Hard with a Vengeance. I have seen that approximately 100+ times. I could quote that film from moment one to the very, very end. Then it's closely followed by A Clockwork Orange. When I say closely, I mean there's nothing in it. I love those two films; are just absolutely phenomenal. Then we've got Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Again, I could quote that from scene one all the way to the very, very end. We've then got The Thing, the Kurt Russell movie. Yes, Kurt Russell movie. That one there, the 1984 version. There's about 20 different versions. And yeah, I've got quite a lot actually, and I could be here all day. Superbad is definitely up there. In fact, Brew, Superbad is my film to watch for the females. You can all know why on that. Favorite ice cream flavor? I don't actually eat ice cream. If I do, it's usually Ben and Jerry's, which is very, 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 very rare because it's just too expensive, and I don't really like eating sweet stuff. But I go with the birthday cake flavor there. Oscar calling. Your prediction for the game? Well, it's 1-0 at the moment. It wouldn't surprise me if it ended 1-0, maybe 1-1, maybe 2-0 to United. But I did say that if you want to put a sneaky bet, 20 pence on Greenwood coming off the bench and scoring for his, for his 18th birthday, by all means, Vince Chapman. See how many Die Hard with a Vengeance quotes you can slide past Jason, and he's away now. I'll do a quick one. I can't even think of one off the top of my head which is appropriate for this particular podcast. No, I'm not going to say anything because none of them are appropriate for the podcast at this time of the evening. Boom songs there. Mane, Aubameyang and Mahrez, or Salah, Mount and Aguero? That's the easiest question of the night. Salah, Mount and Aguero by far. Daniel Jermaine there. Vardy looks tasty. Completely agree with you there. Who's your favourite character from the Bill? Oh, Brew. I could do a podcast on this all night, but so many. Jack Meadows, Mickey Webb. Ooh, Des Taverner. Absolutely. Superintendent Chandler. Oh my God, absolutely amazing. I'll never forget he came on because he's the voice of Talk Sports, and he's the one that does all the adverts and everything. And he came on Talk Sport, and Hawksby and Jacobs actually read out my question to him. It was great. It was so great hearing my name being mentioned on Talk Sport and them asking Steve Hartley, who played Superintendent Chandler, my question. It was absolutely fantastic, that was. And that was quite recent. I actually had the podcast and everything, and yeah, that was great. But Superintendent Chandler, oh my goodness, absolutely superb. I would laugh my head off with him. He just played the character so well indeed. Who's going to win the league? Oscar is asking. Liverpool. I predicted at the start of the season Liverpool, and I'm going to stick. Well, I am going to stick with that. It's quite simple, really. I don't know what Money Heist is, so I apologise for that. Good Lloyd AJ. Good goalkeeper for the next game week. I'll just quickly answer Oscar calling. Do you listen to the Sports Bar with Andy and Jason? Unfortunately, the answer is 9. Unfortunately, I can't, but I'm a massive, I used to be a massive TalkSport fan, and I've seen the evolvement of that show. And that show, if I'm honest with you, is identical to our show. It's just a bit of fun, a bit of camaraderie between two mates that like to have a laugh, bring on callers, have a bit of fun, and away we go there. Good goalkeepers for the next couple of game weeks by Lloyd AJ. I'll quickly find out on that. Nafelu saying, do I skip leg day? No, if anything, I skip every other body part but leg day. Leg day, I do, not that you care, but I train 2 to 3 times a week. It's got to be squats and deads every other day. And I try and do some isolation movements, i.e. leg extensions and hamstring curls. And I always do seated calves as well. Always, but no, I never ever skip leg day. The days that I skip are back. I don't have any days. I just train any old body part, but I never train arms. Can't be bothered. Back, can't be bothered with. I always do shoulder pressing, but I don't specifically target a muscle group per se. I just do squats, and in fact, that's all I do. In fact, off the top of my head, the only thing I do at the moment is squats, military press, and incline dumbbell press. Jason, who is your favourite Bill character?
5 minutes of the game played, and obviously we're talking about the Bill and what we do down the gym.
This
Yippee-ki-yay.
a load of rubbish.
Just love a little bit of ultra violence.
What's your favourite film, Jason?
Well, come on, that's a really hard question to just put me on the spot. My favourite film? Oh, God.
Come on, there must be one that's where you think I have to watch it no matter what.
My favourite film? Groundhog Day, Bill Murray.
Oh, wow. Oh, right, okay.
There we go.
Why?
I just think it's a very beautiful film. It's a good happy film to watch, and there's a lot. I just love Bill Murray. I just think he's a very talented actor, and Forrest Gump's up there as well. That's pretty good. But no, I watched it. I've watched it. I would say about a handful of times. But I can watch it again, and there'll still be bits of the movie that I pick out and think, and yeah, just it's a really good film. It's a good moral. There's a good moral to the story.
Well, linking it back into FPL quickly, we had a question in from Lloyd AJ asking the best goalkeeper for next game week, and I'm looking over. I mean, I'd always go with the
best goalkeeper out of all of them.
Yeah, for the next.
Who's playing Newcastle?
Yeah. Man United, yeah, De Gea.
There we go.
Or Watford, so Henderson.
Yeah, I would say Manchester United, David De Gea. Well, but then I'm not advocating any United players. I said that. I said that 2 game weeks ago. I can't. Okay, so other than him,
is Die Hard a Christmas film? Yes, and my closest friend watches it every Christmas.
Yes, it is Christmas
on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Edison's the best goalkeeper choice. There you go.
Yeah, we just had confirmation from someone here, Nasu, saying Fabianski is out for 3 months. Would it be wise to get their goalkeeper?
No.
That's 4.4, they said. And Suj says, off at Planet FPL says, no, it's a complete waste of time because now West Ham are going to keep conceding at the moment.
When's
Chris
the movie
Judge.
night coming back? Says Brew. Soon TM. I just had lots of real life. Well, I had a holiday for a week, and then I went back to work today, and literally it was like a baptism of fire. I had like a load of work. So soon on that one, Brew.
Do you want to feel good about yourself, Jason? Chris Judge in chat.
Was Daniel
Hard
James
times,
scored?
guys. Yeah, I've gone from 20,000 down to 180,000 in 3 weeks. Woo-hoo!
Well, I
Wow.
still think that 180k at this stage of the season is nothing, to be honest with you. And you'll probably find there's only about 20 points between 180 to 20k anyway. So I wouldn't be too bothered about that at the moment. You can catch that back easily, especially with someone as talented as an FPL manager as yourself, Chris.
Oh, here's a nice question from Boom Songs. A Liverpool and Man City combined 11 or front three if you didn't have time. So who would your Liverpool and Man City combined 11 be? Well, straight away, who would you take, Alisson or Edison?
Edison.
Is that because of his distribution?
Oh, actually, no.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, the question is, do you want 3 outfield players for City, or do you want 3... Oh, no, a team just of Liverpool and Man City,
Liverpool, Man City.
Oh, right, okay. Apologies.
Has to be Kevin De Bruyne in there straight away.
Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne is in there. Salah Mane's in there.
Salah Mane flanking Aguero. Could you imagine that?
Jesus. It's like the Premier... You're telling me this is like the Premier League 11. This is the Premier League 11, isn't it, you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, it would be... oh, God. Only because of Laporte's injury, I would go Alisson.
And that's a point. Laporte partnering Van Dijk.
Laporte, Van Dijk. Oh, that centre-back partnership. Laporte and Van Dijk. That is ridiculous.
TAA on the right, and then we'll have Robertson or Mendy.
Oh,
Zinchenko.
well, Mendy.
It's got to be Robertson. Surely.
Yeah, it will be. Mane, Kevin De Bruyne.
Sterling, would he get in that team?
Sterling, yeah. Mane, Kevin De Bruyne, Salah, Sterling, innit?
Rashford coming close.
And up front, it'll be either Firmino or Jesus with Aguero.
Yeah.
I'll probably say
Pauline's
Firmino.
coming in with Edison, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, Laporte, Robertson, Salah, Mane, Kevin De Bruyne.
That's it. Yeah, that's the team. That's the team, though. Yeah, that is just ridiculous. Looking at that, though, isn't it?
Who would you have
Imagine
to
that.
manage? Would it be Pep Guardiola or Klopp? Marshall Matters is asking.
Oh.
Side Bellamy straight in there with Pep.
Oh, that's really they're two completely different managers, aren't they?
Yeah. The Klopp for the friendliness and he's your best mate at work and gives you all the encouragement. But Pep for his coaching and making you into a better player. It's got to be Pep.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, I would go with Pep. Very tough, but I would just say Pep as well, just on his ability to get the best out of players.
We're not really going to be talking about next week, but seeing as, like I said, we're going for a dull patch. The whole game's been dull, but next week's captaincy pick for you, Jason.
John Lundstrom says Arnie Arnold. That's a troll, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got it on. I've got my captaincy on Aguero at the moment, but I'm very worried. Guys. And on the preview show, we're going to be looking at some captain options, but I don't know if I can keep the armband on Aguero really after the news that he's going to be playing midweek. So it might have to be someone else. And I'm not going to. I'm going to try not to.
Playing Watford, but unfortunately, that team is Sheffield. Oh yeah, of course, Sheffield United away. So hence Lundstrom captaincy. He is essential after all.
It's still 1-0 Mill. Yeah, it's still 1-0.
Yeah,
it's 57 minutes played.
All on Sunday. They're all 2:00 kickoffs apart from your game against Newcastle at 4:30. Strange fixture listing there. At the moment, I've got it on Aubameyang, would you believe? But based on tonight's game, in fact, forget that. Kevin De Bruyne is my captain. That's what I've got it on the moment.
Well, I am. That's the alternative for me, because if I'm not sure about Aguero, am I sure about Kevin De Bruyne? And yet I'm more confident with the armband on him. This is when I wish that I had 3 Man City.
Hold on a minute. Aubameyang, he's just scored 1-1. He has scored. People didn't say in chat, but that was just a few minutes behind. But Aubameyang has scored. Yeah, it's a definite goal, Aubameyang. Again, if he scores 2 or he gets an assist, that's when I'm going to be dejected. Come on! Let's go. Yeah, exactly. Who got the assist? That's the question from Brew.
Jacket.
Right then, lads. Here's a question for you, Jason. When you get your thought process back, Saka.
I'm not interested. I can't even speak. I'm just What's the question? God, I'm angry.
If Kevin De Bruyne is ruled out injured.
Oh, don't even throw this spanner in the works.
Well, he's not going. He hasn't flown out to Zagreb. He's not flown out there at all. Yeah, Saka, whoever that is. Who on earth is Saka? Never heard of him.
Saka?
I've never heard of
Saka? What? I thought you meant Xhaka.
Saka? Let me just see if that name is correct. Are you sure that's not
I think people are winding us up.
No. They're saying on 5 Lives, Saka.
Saka.
So that's not
Bukayo Saka.
Who?
Bukayo Saka. You know that guy from where he's from actually. He's English.
Never heard of him. Saka? No, never heard of him. It's been 3
plays for the
yellow
under 20. Well, he did play. Arsenal under 23 player.
4 yellow cards in this game. 3 of them for United. Wow.
Wow.
As everybody, if you have any questions for myself and Jason, but I just asked Jason who he would bring in for Kevin De Bruyne if he was. If he was injured, would you be immediately getting a replacement, Jason?
Oh mate, this is just a nightmare if he's injured. No, I'm not taking De Bruyne out of my team. No way. No, I'll have to. 10 million, isn't he? Well, no, I got a 9.5 in him. So.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is 10 million now. So if you were to get rid, you'd lose out. Yeah,
lose. It's 9.8. I'd sell him for, wouldn't I?
I'm on 9.7. So I'm guessing you'd be 9.8.
I certainly would not take De Bruyne out if he misses out next game. But I'd be really annoyed because I don't see anything coming from Loughton, and I certainly don't see anything coming from Rico. So yeah, this is one of these. This is just frustrating if that is the case.
Yeah.
I'm still very annoyed that United have conceded, and that you've got Aubameyang. That's
you're lucky I didn't captain him, but at the moment it doesn't really matter because Sterling is still come through that at the moment.
He's on bonus 3 of Aubameyang.
Hey, is he really?
Yeah.
Is he really? Right now, Aubameyang's on bonus 3. You're having a laugh. Oh, that'd be annoying for me.
Well,
that'd be very annoying, actually.
Yeah, well, you wait and see if he scores another one. And my prediction 2-1 comes true. There we go.
Yeah, blimey, you're right. Aubameyang on 3 bonus points at the moment.
Come on, Dan James, get the winning goal. Get those bonus points, please.
Go on, Greenwood. I need Greenwood to come on. If not, I've got Lundstrom, a whopping 2 points.
So it's either 1 point or 2 points. So not much to get excited about.
Unless my 20p bet comes in and Greenwood scores. You never know.
Just need Aubameyang to get a yellow card now. Then
What?
if we get Aubameyang a yellow card, then
Everybody's learned his lesson from last week. Yeah, to hear Aubameyang only scores against rubbish teams. That wasn't Jason that said that. That was me. As ever, guys, if you've got any questions for myself and Jason, you're all very quiet in the chat.
They're watching
Oscar,
the game, that's why.
Who cares about the game? You should be caring about us. Who's getting the top 4, Jason, in the, obviously, real life?
Who's getting the top 4 in real life?
Top 4 places.
Man City first, Liverpool second.
What do you think, Man City going to win it?
Yeah. Man City, Liverpool. Oh, that's going to get a bit tough. That third spot is going to be really open, I think.
You're not thinking Tottenham, though? No, Chelsea,
I'm not. I'm thinking
Leicester.
I think it could be
West Ham.
No, not West Ham. No, I'm
United?
thinking no. I'm thinking third spot is going to go. I think Chelsea, and then Tottenham fourth.
I said at the start of the season, Liverpool to win it, Man City, Tottenham, and then it will either be. I said Chelsea or Arsenal. I originally said Chelsea, but then people were saying, "Nah, you're mad. Go with Arsenal." So I unofficially put Arsenal, but it'd be Chelsea or Arsenal, I think. But
I think a lot of people are going to switch between Tottenham and Chelsea. Like Paulie there's got Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea. It'll either be Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, or Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham. I think Tottenham and Chelsea will be very close.
Not thinking Leicester will make it. I
think they'll be fifth. I think they'll be fifth, just behind.
Shall we look over the more regular members of the community that come live on air, Jason, in our Cash Mini League, and just quickly look over their teams for a second? I think the best player at the moment that regularly comes on is Charlie, 7th in our Cash Mini League at the moment, 48 points, -4. -4, so on 44 points, all out. He's got nobody playing today. Moved up to 7th. Oh, he's got Matt Ryan.
Yeah, he's got Dan James on his bench. That's how much. Obviously, he knows more than I do. Oh, God.
We've got Matt Ryan coming off the bench, so he's just going to be climbing a bit more at the moment. Oh, Keyboys. Oh, yeah, let's have a look at Davey FPL. He's moved up to 10th, would you believe? And what's really annoying is his team is virtually exactly the same as mine, barring the odd player here and there. Ake, he had. Ake. Who
are we on? Keyboy, yeah. He's 12th.
No, Davey FPL. Sorry,
sorry, Davey FPL. Apologies. Davey FPL up into 10th. Wow. Ake. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's captain Sterling, but paid off for him. He's got the two of Pookie and Abraham, Mason Mount. It's same faces, isn't it? But again, it's just that odd player that scores like Aki, and getting your captain pick right. That's everything, really, isn't it?
Yeah, the Keyboy here. Look at Keyboy's team in 12th. Yarmolenko. Unfortunately for us, his rivals, if Greenwood doesn't come on, right? Sorry, I just had a bit of action there. If Greenwood doesn't come off, then Digne is coming on, but he did have Kelly and Dendonka potentially coming on.
Well, it's the Kelly points, isn't it? But a lot of people have got Kelly on their benches.
We mentioned Gareth Edser, who looks like he's going to win the Manager of the Month award. And again, congratulations to you, Gareth. I don't know who on earth you are, but 14th in the Cash Mini League, Jason.
Jeez, could be worse from that is Australia, isn't it? That flag. It's not New Zealand, is it?
Oh, they're virtually exactly the same.
Yeah, they are virtually the same. But yeah, I think that's Australia. Could be could be corrected. I don't know my flags. Sorry, guys. So yeah, 60 points. That's just what?
Kevin De Bruyne, captain. Unbelievable. Yeah. Tell you what would be interesting. Who is the lowest ranked? Probably me, actually.
In what? In the cash league?
In our cash league, that's a regular. And let's just quickly see regular faces. Blimey, Delvin Vaz. Remember him? Used to come in the chat all the time. I rarely see his name much. Well, it is. It's me. I'm the lowest ranked regular. If you're gonna, that's ridiculous. Brilliant. And then Aussie Boy's just above me. Same points. Wow. And then it's Vince Chapman. Vince Chapman in 72nd spot. He would be probably then after that. And then we got Phil. John Harris, Jason, in 68th.
Just
what
goes to show,
Grace.
Yeah. Wow.
And -8 this week. Oh, look, McTominay. Nearly again.
Get him in. Yeah, it's like, how does it feel to know that the defender who's taken so many point hits this year is still above you, Steve-O?
Excuse me, sorry. I saw that when he came on live the other day with you on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, let's just have a quick look. Because is he in the Kashmir? Well, he's above, know that, but
You're breaking up again, Steve. I'm afraid your connection's breaking up a little bit there, dude. You still there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
now.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
So FPL defender 65th, and let's have a look at how many points hits he's taken at the moment. It is an absolute ridiculous amount. I think it was like 36 points or something, if not more. So he's taken 28 points this season of hits. So far, he's used his triple captain, wildcard, and free hit season. And it's just ridiculous, isn't it? And he's got a Aubameyang playing, so I don't even have anybody to counter.
I'm just watching the game. It's United are looking.
United got a free kick on the edge. United, so
they're looking pretty good at the moment. United, they've come out.
Daniel James that steps up, Lingard.
Daniel James is looking pretty damn good.
I just want to back myself. He blocked.
Don't know what's your connection. We'll try and ring you back. Steve-O's obviously an issue at the moment. Let's get him back, guys. Hang on. It looks like he's putting his thumb up, doesn't it? Hello? Hello? Is it that? Yeah, the internet. Obviously, the internet's not so good at the moment for you, mate. Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your internet's obviously not very good at the moment. But it's no issue. We'll persevere. We'll persevere with it.
As FPL Boomer says.
It's So as we're 20 minutes still in this game, and I think United have got a goal in them. I really do. But that's where were we talking about? We were talking about the defender. That was it. He's above you. He's taking loads of hits. He's got Aubameyang in as well, so it's covering points on you, so you can't catch him unless Greenwood comes on and gets you something. He's got Bolly in his team. That's 7 points. Bolly.
Well, I've just heard. I think that Greenwood's warming up.
There you go.
I just heard that.
There you go. He's coming on for his 1 point.
Well, I said 20p on Greenwood to score the last goal of the game. So,
we got some new people joining the community league at the moment. We've got
about 500 million, isn't there?
Liam Ballantyne, Stay, Gregson, Thomas McCarthy, Hamas, Soham, and Shano is joining the community league, and that's got, I think last I checked, there's over 1,700 teams in that community league.
Really?
No, 1,700. Yeah. Let that sink in for a moment. God, it's quite a
I'm
lot.
waiting for the game to finally add onto the main site the average score.
Yeah, they've kind of forgotten about that, haven't they?
Yeah, it's just if you go, if anybody's wondering what on earth I'm talking about, if you go to the status bit on the main page of the fantasy site, you go down and it has most valuable teams and best leagues. And the best leagues is obviously the average of that particular league. And I would be fascinated to see if could you imagine, Jason, if we were actually in it? Could you imagine?
Pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
What's the, in fact, if we go to the free mini league, what is the top spot and how far are they up?
Well,
they
weren't that amazing last time we looked, to be fair. They were
You're useless, everybody.
So we've got all hail King Kane, number 1. He got 62 points this game week. 49th in the world.
Yeah, you're rubbish.
Yeah, no, it could be better. Could be 48th. But no, it's that's just unbelievable, really. He's got the Mount, the McGinn combo. The Mount, McGinn, Aguero. He's got the triple up of De Bruyne, Sterling, Aguero still. Tomori, he's got Sonny and Shoot, Tomori, Alexander. Oh, that's a nice team. That is a nice team. Very, very nice. Well done to you.
Mason Greenwood is on.
Yeah.
According to VAR. Hooray, I get a point.
There you go.
Please score. Let's hope he scores. I don't think he will, but you never know.
And then second place is Marlon Moore. We know his overall rank is, there you go, 1,193. But then I think there's a lot. There's not much in it, is there? Between,
Well, would you believe we got a female at 9? I'm assuming it's a female. It's not going to be like Jane. Samantha Molo.
Who's this? Sorry.
In 9th in the Community League. And she's on 72 points.
Really?
Look at her bench. Jorginho.
9th place. Samantha
Molo.
Malloy. Yeah, Samantha Malloy. Invincible Underdogs. Over rank 4705. Oh, Jorginho. Wow. Imagine having Jorginho instead of Lundstrom. That would have been an amazing score. Got a captain right, Harry Kane. Got Aubameyang playing tonight. Yeah. It's going to be a green arrow for Samantha as well after tonight as well, isn't it? With Aubameyang in that team.
Can you bring up on the Discord in team screenshots? So the Daily Llama has posted in there.
Right, hang on. Team screenshots.
That's terrible. Daily Llama, you must try harder, mate. You need to get my thumb at least. In fact, I'll pose for you now.
Well, no, that's because you know why he's done that, don't you, Stevie?
Go on.
Because that is the screen that was left when we dropped connection. That was the connection drop screen.
Right, I see. Right, okay.
So
talking of which, talking of team screenshots, Jason, do you want to bring up the community team, please? It is in there. It's just above those pictures, basically. I've posted them.
Yeah, in a minute. 1 second. I just want to zoom in this beautiful photo of you. There we go.
Very good.
What do you think about point hit, Steve-O?
Congratulations to Darren Walsh. He is 17,000th overall and 30th in the Community League.
So is this team? The community team's on 37? Is it -4?
37 -4. Yeah, I'll quickly bring up its
it's not very good
statistics in a second, but yeah, this is the community. You've got it on screen.
We need to teach you how to do screenshots, Steve-O.
But I deliberately I deliberately screenshotted the small version so that you can see the full team, and then I did the other one to see the points. But
oh right, 37 points. Right, I see. I'm with you.
Yeah, and at the moment, that specific team is, if I bring it up now, not now.
Where's the overall ranking? Is it higher than you?
1.7 million.
Oh, I was gonna laugh. It was.
That's dropped a lot.
It's this game week
Wow.
score. It's this game week score, isn't it? 37 points
So-
-4.
Yeah, we're going to try and get Phil or Andy, aka Resi Desi, on after this game. Hopefully, we're not going to be going on too long after the game finishes. But this specific community team is now run by Phil and Andy, aka Resi Desi. And simply put, those guys will be creating polls for you guys to be voting on in the Discord. I'm sure Jason can bring it up in a second, where the poll votes are. But basically, the question is that I'm going to be telling Phil and Andy to ask is, do you want to wildcard this community team? Or do you want to wait until the international break, basically? Because, yeah, unfortunately for that specific team, you brought in this game week. So you voted for your transfers as a -4 to basically bring in what's going on here? Oh, not logged in, idiot. Sorry about this. I thought I was on the internet, and no, I'm not. So typical. But yeah, so this team is 1.7 million in the world. Andy and Phil are now specifically taking over from this, and surprise, surprise, my phone. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, so they voted to transfer in Otamendi and Sterling. Oh, it was the captain. The
Sorry about
captain.
that.
No, sorry, no, hang on.
That was
The
captain.
captaincy was Son, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Transfer out was Zinchenko out, Otamendi in, and
Was
they
that
voted for 2 transfers. So it was Otamendi in and Aurier in for
Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Wan-Bissaka, and who isn't playing this evening. So yeah, who would have come on for Wan-Bissaka if they'd have kept Wan-Bissaka?
Right, so it's Wan-Bissaka and Zinchenko out for Otamendi. Yeah, right, cool.
So Otamendi and Aurier returning a total of -1.
And who's coming on off the bench? Mason Greenwood.
So that would have been that.
Kelly.
So they would have had Kelly and Greenwood. Right. Okay. So 7 points. So would have been 8. Well, 9 points better off.
Wow. In fact, there's Phil online now. If you want to bring him on,
Right. Let's
Phil's
bring him
the
in.
Discord. May as well bring on Phil. We can talk about the team.
All right. Hello, Phil. Good evening. What's going on? Ever since you guys took over the community team, it's rocketing down. It's red arrows, isn't it?
We hadn't taken -16s. It ain't that bad.
Oh, dig.
You good though?
I'm not too bad. I would love it if we could beat Arsenal. I said we'll lose to them. Who knows?
Are you watching the game, Phil?
Yeah, I've got it on Sky at the moment.
What's it like? Can you turn his volume up, Jason, if that's possible? I can barely hear him.
Sorry.
It's
Hello, can you hear me?
It's Phil.
That's better.
Quiet.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, game's gone a bit flat the last 20 minutes.
Can you see
Rubbish, isn't it?
Greenwood or Aubameyang getting another goal? A goal?
Yeah, they've both quite well. Aubameyang's definitely got it in him. So's Greenwood if they can get the chance through him. But
I mean,
it just looks like they're going to play out for a draw, if I'm honest.
it's so sad, isn't it? This fixture years ago was such a great fixture to watch. The days of Vieira
They
and
had
Keane.
Roy Keane on before the game talking about his old battles with Vieira.
This is just ridiculously bad now. Two poor teams playing against each other, and it's got 1-1 written all over it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's freaking ridiculous.
So we've got the community team up, Phil, and everything. You and Andy have taken charge of this. Do you want to tell us about this community team and
This
what you want to do with it?
That's Jason's team on the
No,
screen.
I've got it up now. It's fine. I've got it up.
Well, I think the problem that we've got is that we haven't got De Bruyne. Is the big situation that we do need to fix on the wild card, which I think we could do it this week, but it's just more of a time factor. That's why we were suggesting doing it in the international break.
And by the way, if we do a wild card in the international break, we'll do a special for that. We'll do a special specific podcast for that thing, and we may get we would get you on and Andy on to help host the show itself, because
at least then we can do like some polls in the chat on here with the 1s and 2s to make some quick decisions.
Yeah,
it'd be good. It'd be quite a good thing to do during that break. Definitely. So this game, you said you've been watching it. How are you judging it, Phil?
Well, same
Would you be
as when I was
confident
watching
owning?
the Tottenham game. I've got no assets, so I'm not really interested in it. I've got Krasnach on the bench.
What would you say for people that owned Aubameyang?
The future looks bright for fixture wise. But
I thought you were going to
I
say
don't
the
know,
future's orange. No, but he returns every week.
Like you were saying earlier in the show, I think you got to look at Vardy now going forward.
Yeah.
Everyone, even in the Discord, a lot of people have been talking about it today.
Yeah. I'm watching the game, and I'm a little bit behind you guys on the radio, of course. But honestly, just ridiculously bad. So yes, community team wildcarding. You're going to wait then? Are we not going to make a vote about the wildcard this obviously for the next game week, or are we deciding that it's going to be in the international break?
Well, I'm guessing they're going to want to transfer out Aurier, but then are we going to want him back for game week 9?
Well, you've got to use the transfer if you're going to wildcard game week 9. There's no point saving it. So I just do the do the polls as per normal, really.
Yeah, I'd guess it'd probably be like Aurier out to maybe Tomori or something along them lines.
Tomori,
if we're just using one.
Yeah. Or Soyuncu.
But that's one thing I did notice that last week with the team, because we had Sterling, when we done the team pre-season, we focused more on the main 11, and our bench was dire that week.
And yet, ironically, we didn't touch it for 2 weeks, wasn't it, Jason? Or 3 weeks, and it did really, really well.
Yeah.
It was like 100,000. Yeah. In fact, I could find out, actually, it was, if we just quickly look, the highest position that this specific team has been in was 203,000th. That was the highest it's been, and that was in game week 3.
We can get it back there.
Can we just restart the season at this point?
It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh god.
Shambles.
Phil,
have you got any final thoughts before we let you go?
I just want to add to what Jason just said. The fun's in the chase. I mean, I started off the season, I was rock bottom of the cash league. I think I'm above Steve-O currently, but I think Aubameyang might have changed that tonight. Yeah, just keep going, man. It's a long game. A lot of people fall away as we go along.
Yeah, they do.
It's not a big thing. No,
absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's very, very early, and people are upset that they're in. John Harris, who's dropped to 180,000 or whatever it was. I certainly wouldn't be upset about that. That's still very, very good place to be with all the points that are kind of jammed up together at the moment. There's very little in it. We keep saying it over and over again. The next, I would say, after probably game week 11, 12, that's when you really start to see where everyone's going to kind of edge towards. But even then, you can still claim it back. But Phil, thank you so much for being on.
Also, I'd just like to add, like that Discord video you done yesterday was good. I shared that about a bit yesterday.
Oh, thank you, Phil.
Nice.
I appreciate it. Well, if it helped one person, then it was worth it at the end of the day. It wasn't meant for, obviously, the members that know about Discord. It wasn't meant for them. It was meant for the people that didn't know what Discord was and how to get on it. So there you go.
Yep. All right, enjoy the rest of the night, guys. Yeah?
Cheers, Phil. Take care, mate.
Cheers, dude. Thank you. Nice one, dude. Here's a question for you, Jason, from Virgil Lovren. Which 3 teams do you think are going to get relegated this year?
Very good question, isn't it? I think Watford. I'm looking at the table now. I think Villa aren't going to get relegated.
Well, you sure?
I think they got enough to stay up. I'll go definitely. I think Newcastle and Watford are going to be prime candidates, definitely. It's just the third one. Burnley, I reckon. No, I don't know. That's really tough. I'm going to go, Watford, Newcastle, and someone else. Who do you think the third team would be? I'm guessing you were going to agree with me on Watford and Newcastle.
At the moment, Watford are just... It's the classic thing, isn't it? They're a bunch of clowns. Let me just quickly look at the league table. Let's see who's not doing great. Aston Villa aren't looking that well. They're looking okay, but they're just dropping so many points, and that ain't a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. The fact they were twice leading against us and dropped points. In fact, they've dropped 10 points this season from winning positions. Would you believe, Aston Villa? So you've got, I think Norwich.
Yeah, I think Norwich. Yeah, I think they can't defend, and they're going to just be. I think their goal difference is -7 as it is now. I think I can't believe Watford are -16.
16, yeah.
-16 goals. I didn't realise until I just saw that. Wow. 4 goals scored, 20 conceded. 16 conceded for 16 goals conceded for Norwich, the second most conceded.
There's this incredible statistic that Planet FPL revealed about every single defender that's played against Man City this season is on 0. The total points that they've earned is 0 points or something because of the amount of minuses that Watford got. How crazy is that?
I thought I heard something then. Man City, well, I mean, they're just goals. They're just a goal machine. They've got 27 goals already. Just let that sink in, guys and girls, if you're watching. 27 goals. That is just absolutely amazing. They've conceded 7. They've still got a decent defensive record.
I still look at Liverpool. What played 7, won 7. It's just amazing.
They're
so good.
They're just getting the results, aren't they? They're getting the 1-0. You know, the luck. You know, Henderson spilling the ball into the net. That's worrying because games that would have been 0-0 last year.
Leicester up next though, and Leicester's away record 1-1, drawn 1, lost 1. 3 goals for, 3 against. Liverpool at home, 10 goals for, 3 against, 1 or 3 games. So I reckon that could be like 1-0 Liverpool. A very tight.
You really think
1-0,
Leicester? You think
2-1.
Leicester's not going to score?
There's Greenwood with a chance there. Miss Hughes.
Okay. It's almost over, isn't it now? It's almost finished.
We're coming to the end.
So disappointing.
Ironically, Leicester are above Liverpool in the home form.
People would have paid good money to watch that game at Old Trafford. I feel so sorry for him. I'm going to say that Leicester are going to score in that game. I think Liverpool probably will win it though. But we'll go on to that in the preview. But that just looking at that, -16 goal difference for Watford already, plus 20 goal difference for Man City. Wow. But yeah, Leno save. What a save, apparently, from Leno.
We're only going to be going on till about 10 o'clock, everybody. So if anyone wants to come live on air after the game ends...
Might as well come on now.
Well, you may as well come on now. If anybody wants to come live on air, you may as well come on live now because we're only going on till about 10 o'clock. Got about 9-10 minutes left, 11 minutes left, and away we go.
And if you haven't already, guys, hit that subscribe button. If you're already, if you're tuning in
of course.
and you haven't already,
we haven't done admin, have we?
The like button really helps us out as well, boosts us up on the YouTube, and check out the website elitefpl.com.
Here's a question for you. Let's annoy you, Jason, because someone's annoyed. Why do you stream when it's a match? That's from Frank. Come on, Jason. Why do we stream when it's a match?
I don't know what I'm going to turn it off and watch the game. No, we stream because we want to talk about the game, and we want to talk about we normally stream on a Monday night anyway. And yeah, it's a good time to have talking points about the game that's on. Talk to people about people's FPL weekend, and yeah, if that's all right. I mean, we're not
how the game is affecting us from a FPL perspective.
Yeah, in which you've had Aubameyang score, I've had Dan James do nothing. So yes, and it's looking likely that the game's going to end 1-1. So yeah.
Yeah. And our luck when it comes to live streaming during games is absolutely rubbish.
Yeah, it's never entertaining games. So maybe we shouldn't stream during games.
What was it? 1-1 today, 0-0 last week. I'm sure it was another rubbish game that we streamed this season live as well. It was terrible. I think the best game we had was Liverpool versus Norwich, the first game of the season. That was fantastic. That was absolutely ridiculous. What was that, 4-1 in the end? Four goals in the first half for Liverpool. We were expecting like 7 or 8. And we thought the season is going to be like, here we go. Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Salah, here we go. Look where we are now. Kevin De Bruyne. That's all we are. Worried if you're flaming them.
Waiting for the full-time whistle. Oh, we got a subscriber. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Who was that? That was Chelsea Flyer. Chelsea Flyer, thank you.
Chelsea Flyer?
Yeah. We've seen him in chat a few times. He hadn't subscribed to us. Oh, well, there you go. Cheers, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, regarding the support of the show. If we get a lot of questions, how do we support the show? How do we help this channel grow? Well, the easiest way to do it is by liking the video and by just subscribing to our channel, because we are pretty much a daily streamer, basically. No, thank you, Virgil. Virgil just saying, it's a great stream. Enjoy listening and thanks for answering my questions. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We do this for you, the community. We are very busy regarding the chat and everything, but tonight you're lucky because thankfully...
Game's over.
The game is over. It's finished 1-1. McTominay with the goal, Rashford assist, and then Aubameyang goal and Saka assist. So basically, the only interest from a fantasy football point of view is the fact that Aubameyang scored tonight.
Well,
and
red arrow for me.
Well, I'm hoping to climb something. I'm really hoping. In fact, you know what? Like I said, if anybody wants to get into the waiting room,
what's Aubameyang on at the moment? There we go. So he's on 9. He's on 9 points.
So he did get bonus.
Yeah, he's on bonus 3. You're catching 9 points on me. So what, you can be 11 behind, something like that? Maybe 8, maybe
really?
No, maybe 10 behind me now.
Well, at the moment I'm what? Like 24 points, 23, 24, 25 points behind you.
No, you're not that much, are you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, of course I have.
Well, I thought you caught up a bit. Sorry.
No. I'm miles behind.
Well, you needed that Aubameyang goal, didn't you? But it's worked out for you because, like you said, you didn't want him to outscore. Well,
so I've missed out on what, 5? So what did Sterling get? 14. Yeah. Aubameyang would have got 18. So 4 points essentially. I've missed out. Yeah, it's not too bad, not major, but bit meh. But that girl that was 10,000th in the world is doing really, really well. She'll be happy. She'll be very happy indeed.
So you're 22 points
behind you,
behind me, and now you're going to be quick maths.
Oh, sorry, I'm 22 points behind you now.
No, and then that's not including Aubameyang. So you're going to be catching 9 points on that, plus
Greenwood, so 1. So
take about. I mean, I got Jan James in. Don't forget, with 2.
So 1 point. So 11. So 10 points. I'm going to catch you up. So I'll be 12 points behind you.
12 points behind me. Yeah.
Here we are, lad.
So when I take my minus 12 in a minute to get my players in, I won. Can you imagine if I did that, Steve-O? You'd be like, what?
Let's just quickly see. Let's just see Aussie Boy. And Aussie Boy again. Thanks for joining. Oh, wow, Aussie Boy hit his wild card. Ooh, and he had a Aubameyang playing. Oh, God. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead of Aussie Boy by 1 point because of Greenwood coming off the bench. Would you believe that? And Aussie Boy did a wild card this week. Who's on his bench, just of interest? Rubbish. Ooh, Aussie boy. We did remember that, a flip of the coin, Jason, for our thing? That was ridiculous that day.
That was funny though, wasn't it?
I may actually catch up with Boona.
Oh, well, there you go. Boona's
Oh no, he gets sick. Oh no, I forgot he gets sick.
he's getting those jammy points. He's done that a few times now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's getting really lucky. I think he's
But there is now Kelly
he's due a bit of bad luck, I think, Boona.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah,
Right,
don't make
guys.
any transfers. Ari Hiroki says Champions League is tomorrow. Wait for the Champions League games if you can. Don't rush and do a transfer. But yeah, I think that ties it up. 5 to 10. We're going to be social. Spend the last couple of hours before going to sleep, before the next working day. But thank you ever so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to this evening stream. And even if you question why we stream. But yeah, Steve, do you want to finally do the admin?
Yeah, can't have a joke on here, Jason. We've got to be serious.
Wait, you see? Wait. You meaning to say you haven't had that phone call yet from Piers?
No, I've got to go on Loose Women instead. So...
yeah.
Blimey, all right. Yeah, as ever, thank you for joining us. We are aware that we're doing it during a flaming match and our viewership numbers are down, but it doesn't matter. We're doing this for you guys and whatever. But as ever, let's just
don't forget we used to streaming in front of 3 people, 5 people, 8 people. You know, makes no difference to us.
No, I completely agree, and I know you guys get us. We've had comments in the chat saying you get entertained by us, and that's what we do it for. You know, we are pretty much a daily stream, and yeah, let's hit the admin, shall we, Jason? So if you've enjoyed the video tonight, / if you're watching on the replay, by all means, hit that like button. It does show your support for the stream. If you are new around here, as Jason says, and haven't subscribed, but you enjoy the content that the pair of us produce, simply hit the subscribe button. We are pretty much a daily show. And then maybe a breakfast club show on Wednesday or Thursday morning. Maybe Wednesday morning, because we're not be doing a Wednesday evening stream, depending on actually, Jason, what happens in the Champions League. We could do an impromptu Champions League reaction like we did a couple of weeks ago, maybe. But again, don't hold me to that.
Maybe.
The best way to find out, though, if we are doing impromptu streams, is by simply following us on Twitter.
And
That's the
Discord.
first. Yeah. Slow down, Jason. The second I hit it on Twitter, I immediately put it in the Discord. And the Discord, the wonderful Discord that Jason has created, simply the description is in the video, the description of the video below. And of course,
we're going to just say elitefpl.com/Discord. There you go.
There we are. That's as simple as it gets. elitefpl.com/Discord. Other than that, you can follow us on Instagram as well. Our former co-host Dan, he is now running the Instagram page, so follow us on Instagram at Elite FPL. Like I said, Twitter at Elite FPL. Other than that, I can't think of any other admin, Jason. Other than we will see you for definite on Thursday evening for our preview show for Game Week 8. Keep your ears for the history, which came out on top again. Oh, and I can give some breaking news. Nimfria, if you watch this on the replay or you watch this live, not only did you beat J&O for your predictions, but you beat me. You got 13 points. So congratulations. You beat myself and Jason and the history for your predictions. And you said you were rubbish at predictions. Well, this week you were proven wrong. So congratulations to Nimfria there. A point goes down to you. Other than that, Jason, what a great stream that's been.
Yeah, not a great game,
Actually,
but a great stream.
We'll do a Steve-O special for John Harris. Before we go, just quickly sum up your thoughts on this 1-1 draw, and then we'll close out.
Me?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the 1-1?
Oh, just the crap. The crap show goes on for Man United, and Ollie needs to get his Z sorted out.
There we are.
Bye.
Done. Just an interest. Whereabouts are you? Not in the world, but are you near like an industrial machine or something? It's very...
What's going on?
Not a lot really. I'm waiting to go to gym. What about yourself?
Live on YouTube doing a stream.
Why do you feel that you're constantly changing your team, mate? Which is just,
It's
there's
just
just
I'm
so
hearing
many
so-
ideas.
So many ideas, so many different perspectives. I blame Brett Mollison for his 5 at back, because when you see my new team,
Wow.
Brighton home, they couldn't buy a goal in the last season.
Well, I don't know. Dan's got Glenn Murray. I think he'll have a word to say about that.
I'm detecting possibly a German accent. I'm probably completely way out. But where are you calling us from?
South Africa.
On the first day, I literally just typed in FPL, like first draft, and yours came up like first. So I thought, oh, I'll watch one of the live streams when it comes on. And then I thought, this is a bit long, isn't it? About 2 hours in. And then 3 hours later, well, an hour later, I was like, yeah, these seem alright, you know. Stephen's not that bad.
I have one question for you. I want you to predict the order of the Elite FPL ranking. So, like, who do you think will finish first, second, and third out of y'all three this season?
So it's certainly, no disrespect to Dan, but it's certainly going to be between me and Jason. And right now, as it stands, I'd go with Jason because my history suggests that I'm going to be having a bad season.
So I've got the 5 at the back. I just see a lot of value there. I feel like if I don't have Salah, I can spread the money elsewhere and maybe get the points another way.
All the teams now, except for obviously Salah and Sterling, these players, a lot of players are going to change towards the start of the season just because of new transfers, injuries that could happen, and all of that. So for me to tell you now, like personally right now, I'd say definitely if Tammy Abraham or Batshuayi are cheap, I'd get one of them just because I don't care about the Man United. We can score against them at least 2 or 3.
Hey guys, this season we're using Discord. It's a text and voice application where you can talk all things FPL with fellow community members. You can post your team in the Rate My Team, talk in the general chat, you can look at transfer news, look at awesome GIFs, sign up for our Cash Mini League, look at our previous podcasts, and even join us live on air in one of our streams. We look forward to seeing you guys. Link is in the description, or look at the code on screen.